Hi and welcome to the Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour for April. This is a live recording of a Teams meeting, so expect F's, Jeff's and controversial opinions. Certifications and exams are an essential part of many roles across the Microsoft ecosystem. Whether you're a seasoned professional or new on a journey, passing an exam shows your understanding and opens doors. Julian Sharp, a MCT MVP and full-time trainer, and Victor Dantas, MCT MVP and educator, join Alison and Carl to discuss the what, the why and the how for exams. Please follow and subscribe in your usual place and enjoy this episode.
Willkommen et bienvenue everybody to the April Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour. Thanks very much for joining us, the three people that are not in Berlin. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. And this week we are joined by one of my favourite people, Julian Sharp, and another one of my favourite people remotely because he lives so far away, Victor Dantas. And they're going to be talking us through their opinions on training and certification in the Microsoft sphere. So what we would normally do is invite you lovely guests to give us an introduction after I've done the code of conduct, obviously. And while I'm doing the code of conduct, have a think about a fun fact about yourselves that you would be happy to share on a public forum.
We have had some real crackers.
We've had some corkers, so hence why I've mentioned it now, to give you some time to think rather than putting you on the spot, like some of our guests who panicked. I don't think they panicked, actually. I don't think that's fair, but I think it's probably fairer to give you a bit of time to think about your fun fact. Whilst you do that, I will run through our code of conduct. This is a community run and organised event, and we do welcome everybody's opinions and viewpoints and input, but we would ask you to be aware of others, to be friendly and patient, and understand that not everybody has the same opinion. Some people may have opinions that differ from yours. It doesn't mean one of you is right and one of you is wrong. It purely means that you have differing opinions. And so we would ask you to be open-minded to other people's opinions and be welcoming and respectful and understanding of differences. If you see any behaviour on the Power Platform Virtual Happy Hour that you think is inappropriate or unbecoming of a community event, please let me know, or let Carl know, because it was probably me that did it, and we will deal with it accordingly. We have had a couple of times people that have made inappropriate comments and they do get booted. So I think with the people that we've got on the call, yeah, Julian.
Right now, might as well.
Honestly, you were definitely not an offender, not in my memory anyway. I think the people that we've got on the call now are all lovely people, so I'm sure we'll be fine, but you will get booted if you're rude. So the format, as usual, is we'll just have an open discussion about the topic, and do please put your questions or comments or ideas in the chat, and we will give them some consideration or answer them if required, or we will bring them up to the guests. But Victor, Julian, who would like to go first on telling us a bit about yourself and your fun fact?
Let's just start with the longest beard, I guess.
And also, alphabetically, he should, in fact.
That implies authority, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Me. Right, let's do it. Julian Sharp, been involved in Dynamics since version 1. Long time ago. Been training, involved in training since about 2008, when Microsoft said we actually want somebody who knows the product to train it, not people who just read out of a book. Since then, training, doing more and more certifications. I've done over 80, as Alison just reminded me before the call. I've got one waiting in beta for the result, the customer insights. And fun fact, I used to be a DJ at clubs
Oh,
long time ago.
wow, wow.
What music?
I was dance. It was in the late
Oh.
80s, early 90s. A bit of
Wow.
acid.
You should bust out some tunes for us, Julian.
Make some shapes, yeah.
Come on. Well, Victor Dantas here. I am Brazilian by birth, but I've been living in Canada for the last, it's going to be 10 years in May, so pretty excited about it. I am a coder coming from the .NET background, so I've done it for most of my life, but I was exposed to Dynamics CRM4 when I moved to Canada. So it was one of the gifts Canada gave me, I suppose. I've been working in the technology for the last little while. I guess a fun fact for me is that I'm a father of 3 girls, and they were born in the 3 different countries that I lived, the US, Brazil, and Canada. And I am hoping that I don't have to move elsewhere, because if the trend continues, we'll get another girl. I want to say that I'm delighted to be invited to this happy hour, especially with the theme. I'm not sure what I'm gonna add here, having Julian Sharp, in the same show as me talking about certifications, but I'm gonna enjoy the ride for sure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
We're delighted to have you. Just going back to the multi-residency family that you have there, so you can never get kicked out of any of those countries as a parent of a child. So if the child is born there, they're automatically a national, right?
Yes.
And as the parent of a national, you can't be kicked out of the country. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. We can have free access, I suppose, to all 3 countries. The girls, they have all the nationalities, so they'll get to keep it even at throughout their adulthood. But if they wanted to compete in sports, they have to pick one of the countries eventually, but they would still keep the citizenship.
And for Canada, you can keep your original citizenship and your Canadian citizenship, right? Because I have dual. I'm English and Irish. I don't have to give one up for the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice. Julian, I feel like we're going to have another discussion offline about best acid house tracks of the late 80s. It's absolute. I've just got a vision of myself in all of my day glow like shorts and t-shirts.
Yeah, it was a different time.
It was, but it was an amazing time. For those of us that are old enough to remember it, it was the best time.
It's a mistake. If you remember it, you weren't doing it properly.
Well, also, I did actually. I got one of my. Well, I've only ever had food poisoning once, and it was actually from going to a club in Brighton in 1987 and having an entire evening. But that's a story for another day. I'll bore you about that when I see you. So. LOLs. So moving on, certifications, yes or no, I think is a thing. For me, I think the certifications are a way of showing that you have at least a basic level of competence, just when you look at those fundamentals exams, to show to people that you know what you're doing, right, with the technology. And I think that's very important. And I think actually also even more important is as you progress up of those to the more advanced exams, fewer people have those. A lot of people have the fundamentals, I think, but fewer people have the associate level exams. So I think that definitely shows an incredible level of specialization and knowledge on the product that I think is valuable. Where I think it's so I think the certification training is a fantastic idea, and also we know it helps with partner status and all that kind of thing. Where I think is a little bit tricky is, I think if you look at the Power Platform aspect of things, there are a lot of people coming into Power Platform that don't have a tech background, and I think even the Power Platform fundamentals feels like almost like a barrier. I feel like there's a lot of expectation, or they feel like it would be too difficult for them to pass that exam. Would you be like, do you think that there is room to put something in that is maybe someone can do a smaller, less recognized certification on like apps or Power Automate or something? Who wants to comment on that?
I'll talk on that. I think the fundamentals have got a little bit wrong.
Okay.
Microsoft recognise this, and they're actually rolling them back a bit. You're going to see some changes in them starting soon. I think actually the Dynamics fundamental has already changed. The CRM one. To take them up a level. Basically, they went too much detail, and they're going to try and take them up. Unfortunately, I don't think they're taking that enough.
Okay.
So I think we're going to see some changes in the Power Platform one that's going to come out, be less doing, more about a higher level. The only trouble is, I think it's because people like me were involved in making some of these. They're too Dataverse orientated. And what you said about people coming in from non-traditional, there isn't enough, oh, let's pull it from Excel or from SharePoint or from something else. It's all about Dataverse.
Right.
And we see that not just in the fundamentals, but also in the app maker certification.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of overlap. And I think there are some changes coming which hopefully will address it, but it's a slow process for them to refine them and get them better.
I think where I struggled with it, having looked through it, like, and I'm just going to preface this with, I haven't actually sat any full exams, but I've done like test exams, and some of the questions are so basic that you just go like, honestly, why was that even in there?
Yeah.
And then some of them,
even you could answer it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, even I could answer them. Even my mum knew them, right? And she insists that she doesn't have a password for her email account, which is also a story for another day. She doesn't have to put a password in. She said, no, there's no password on my email account. I went, yes, there is. And she said, no, there isn't. I don't put one in. I went, but there's still one there. But some of them are so ridiculous. I don't even know that it's difficult. I think sometimes that maybe they are, what's the word I'm looking for? It's difficult to actually gauge what it is that they're looking for out of the answer, right? So I think sometimes, like I sat through a couple of test exams and I was a bit intimidated by some of the questions on there, and it has put me off. It's put me off.
Yeah, you talk about the measure up ones, or?
Yes.
Yeah, well, sometimes they get at the wrong level. Again, people write the items for them. I write for measure up, by the way. Sometimes some of the people they write for, they go too deep. I was actually reviewing somebody's additions to one of the core things the other day, and I basically throw all these questions out. He said, you're asking developer level questions for fundamentals. You're asking about APIs and things like that, which are completely the wrong thing.
Yeah.
If you actually go to, Microsoft's actually released something. If you actually go to the exam pages, there's a little download sample questions now. It's just been added in the last few weeks. It downloads 20 sample questions, and they're at the same level as the exam. They'll give you a better idea. Though again, occasionally if you sneak through.
Are they exam questions from previous exams, or
no?
Just
they were.
content?
I wrote some of them. They actually got us to write them in exactly the same way as they do for the exam. So you go through the exact same process. So they are written with the same, and they're written at the same level in terms of how much text you have and the way they're written. So they're not exactly the same, but they'll give you a flavour for what's expected.
I think my next question is, if you knew that I wanted to sit some of the exams, why didn't you write some questions that I would be able to get right? Specifically, maybe about my hair colour or something.
No, I agree. Back to like the original question was yes or no for certification. I'd say maybe, because a lot of times going through pre-selection of candidates, you want to know if the person really took the time to get certified. But then that is the first, for me at least, it's the first level of considering a candidate. Even if it's fundamentals, that is my cut there. But I never ask the questions that are in the exams on the interviews. So I agree with Julian. I think they have to step back and maybe redo the questions to an extent. For example, if I'm interviewing for a maker, I don't care if the guy doesn't know anything about an API, but I do care that they know how to do what they're supposed to do well, and that goes back to basic ALM concepts. how do I structure my apps or my components within a solution, so on and so forth. But yeah.
Yeah, and just to say this about exam questions, when it's really difficult to write good exam questions because the answers have to be 100% right, 100% wrong. There's no maybe or best practice, which is actually, if you're interviewing somebody, you actually want to ask. It's a different thing. You want to hear people's opinions because there isn't, and that's why some questions tend to be exams tend to be too technically focused because we can ask questions around that. I can't ask you about how to do things because there could be multiple ways or.
Right. So yeah, the answer has to be binary, I guess, doesn't it? It has to be one or the
You're not
other.
asking for an essay, are you, either?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You're asking for a
Yeah.
1-word answer.
Like you say, if
Or
you're
2 words.
interviewing someone, you go, "Oh, if this situation came up, how would you approach it?" And you extrapolate where their knowledge is from how they approach the situation, right?
And I like to ask how people think. How do they approach something? What's their? Because I've worked with developers. We used to employ one until we realised his approach to developing was trying things, and if they didn't work, he'd throw it away and try something else. And it was, he didn't have that ability to
like
work.
Something I would do.
Yeah, he like found things, tried it. There's no way of thinking through what's working, what isn't. That's for me is really important. Even in a non-developer, it's your thought process and how you. Because nobody ever gets it right first time. It's how do I address things?
It's like showing you're working.
Can't handle that.
It's like showing you're working, right? You want to be able to see, well, you were okay here, you just went a bit wrong here, and you need to be able to problem solve. The core of being good at any job, particularly in tech, is to be able to solve problems, right? And so typically when you question people, it's around that, but that's not what you're looking for in an exam, is it? Right? You're looking for. In fact, Victor, we spoke about the makers thing, and about how the tech guys are picking up some of the stuff the makers are doing that maybe is incorrect or is not very dev focused. We kind of touched on it before we came on the call about, you're either a dev or not a dev. So elaborate on your point from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we see quite a bit. Back in my day when I joined the CRM crew, the idea was that you'd have a good functional analyst. That's, I think, what Microsoft's calling now citizen developer or maker, right? And usually we spent a lot of time training those folks how to handle the handover, between what a maker does and what a pro dev or an architect should do. And I think there is a gap there in the Microsoft story of, the low code, no code platform, that particular skill of understanding where the two roles overlap. I'll give you an example. Microsoft has invested a lot of time in making it easier for folks to create portals and apps and model-driven apps, so on and so forth. And they made investments into the CLI to facilitate, translation of those changes or implementations across different environments. So if they really want to empower makers to carry on with development, I think they should tell them the whole story. You do not create an app on a production environment. You need to have another place to do your code. But then I know that folks will refrain from creating these apps because they might have no idea how to transport an app or solution across different environments. So in my opinion, Microsoft should create that, bake that into the platform so that it helps the maker transport those solutions across different environments. It could be, I want to export the solution. Okay, do you want to just download the file? Or do you want to transport to one of the environments within your tenant? So just bake those basic concepts so we get somewhere. Because a lot of times I talk with pro devs, people who love the platform, and they say, you know what? This whole thing about makers is making my life harder because I don't code anymore. I just pick up an app that's broken and I have to fix it, and you have this friction.
Or throw it away and write a new one,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That whole thing about solutions and ALM, we've had a lot of discussion about whether there should be in this training. There seems to think, the makers shouldn't know about solutions. They're not going to do that. But I think I'm with you a bit, Victor. I think they need to know a bit. The trouble is when you start teaching solutions, you have to teach an awful lot. There's too much of a barrier to get going. And we're trying to avoid having barriers to people building stuff. But what we want to do is make it easy. So, okay, I built it. Now put it in a solution. It's do it for you. There should be more AI, I think, for want of a better word, saying, okay, let's package this up. Why can't we do that and help our people, guide them?
Yeah, empower them. My mom used to use the term empower. Let me empower you, child. And what she meant was, let me help you do your work well so that I don't have to do it for you.
Yeah.
What a brilliant, what a fantastic parent. I think the way that people look at this is with the makers and the non-dev people coming into it, we feel like it's too much of a jump for them to learn about ALM and DevOps and stuff like that, and how to manage the back end of all of that technology. But you don't need to ask that. Like, the best analogy I can come up with is you can teach someone to change a tire and they understand the tire or the wheel and the concept of the wheel in the car overall, but they don't have to be a mechanic to be able to do that, right? So there has to be a certain amount that we can show people. Like, I'm not a developer, as I was saying before the call, I'm not a developer. I don't come from that background. I would love to be a developer, but I just didn't come through a tech background, so I've not learned it. So I have an appetite to learn those things, and I'm interested to learn those things. And I think if people are interested and they show an aptitude, I mean, probably by the nature of them making stuff, they're probably interested in it and they're probably interested in learning more. But it has to be a balance of being accessible versus being overwhelming, right? And I think that's the line that we're trying to straddle here.
And I think so many people have different experiences and come from different perspectives. It's very hard to say this is what you need to do. And Microsoft have tried to do that with their training and their certification. They have this very fixed idea. And a lot of it comes from larger organizations. A lot of their thinking is from their large customers who they talk to, who set the patterns, and we don't all fit that always.
But I think there's probably a specific reason why it comes from there, because if you look at historically things like ERP and CRM, typically they were bigger customers. Like the Power Platform and this kind of accessible technology is very new, so there is no precedent, right? And there is no like evolution from having a business analyst or functional analyst or something. And you, like, if you do F&O, probably you've either come from a tech background or you've come from a finance background, and so you know one or other side of that thing. But if you just happen to work in a company that's doing Power Platform and you don't have a background in either of those things, then you don't necessarily have like an angle to bring to that.
You don't have that rigorous background, whether it's not like you take a look at finance people. Finance people tend to come from a very ordered background, so they actually used to following process. And a lot of people in the ERP world, they actually come from business and become technical on the back of it, and it's actually easier to teach your supply chain management specialist how to do ERP than it is to teach me how to do supply chain management, so I wouldn't have a clue. And I wouldn't want to. So somebody asked in the chat earlier on, which certification would I never do? In Dynamics, it'd be the supply chain management. Never,
really?
ever,
I would totally do that, but I worked in supply chain management, so I have some appreciation of it, so I would do it totally, 100%.
It's hard. It's seriously hard.
I can imagine. Well, I don't know the first thing about F&O, if I'm honest, so we'd have to start there before we even start looking at supply chain management.
Well, on that, I'm starting a study group starting on the 1st
I saw that,
of May.
and I might well join. Actually, I might well join that.
Finance and Operations Core, which is the basics of all the finance and operations apps.
Yeah, I might join you on that one. Carlos, sorry, you had your hand up for ages. You're so patient.
Yeah, no, sorry. I wanted to, just to say that I'm at a large partner, and we do structure, but our clients, there is a very varied way of in them. There are teams that are used to the structure and are doing that, but they want to enable. They've still got access databases. They've still got the spreadsheets and all that sort of thing. And it's the challenge as a partner to understand how far you want to take that ALM process. And we talked about this a couple of sessions ago. The idea of those low-hanging fruit, those small apps, do they need that ALM process? But my question was more to going back to Victor's international heritage and the fact that he's in Canada and
Mexico.
He's Mexico today, yes.
Yes.
But the idea of do you see a difference? You know, because I'm assuming that you guys talk to a lot of people from all over the world, from India and Australia, and as well as your own countries. Is there a different perspective on certifications when people are coming through in different parts of the world?
I think back home in Brazil there was an emphasis on certification, and when I moved to Canada, there was a big hiring spree for the particular partner I joined, and there were with me I think about 20 Brazilians who joined the company in that time frame, and there was a certification program for the company. I think we have somebody in the chat here that also I worked with that person in that time frame. But when the Brazilians joined, they saw that there was a program from the company, and it involved a bonus. So since certification was something that we did, I think that year I can't remember, between 8 and 10 certs in 1 year. And then I'm pretty sure my colleagues from Brazil did the same. And then the following year, the company said, you know what, you are limited to 2 certifications within the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. In Brazil, people are heavily reliant on certifications. I remember when I lived in the States that was a thing as well, more in the .NET framework area. Canada was at least in the region I was working on, it was a little slower there in terms of people pushing forward to get certs. But one thing that I noticed in all 3 countries was that you can't really trust. And I'll give the example of myself. I'm not gonna judge any other professional, but you can't judge the professional by the certs that they have. I've seen people have tons and tons of certs, and then when they joined the company, they couldn't really write code.
Yeah,
so
I'll address that because it's something I was going to point out earlier. The certifications used just to be about remembering facts. Microsoft has actually made it a lot harder to use brain dumps and just self-learn, because the way the questions are written, some of the techniques they use, which I'm not going to talk about, mean that it's very hard just to revise and not do it. I would say the certification in the last 2 or 3 years perhaps they're miles ahead of where they used to be in terms of that. So yeah, I was probably like you. There's some people you'd see have certification wouldn't train, weren't able to do the job.
Yeah.
And that was an issue, and it still is a certain issue. And there's a certain level of credentialism around the world. Different countries have different approaches to credentials, and it's seen as a way of getting on. And I train all over the world and a lot around Europe. And there is, even within Europe, there's a difference in perception on certifications. But I think we should also be careful about partners. Partners need certification because they need to get partner status. So a lot of people in the partner world, like I was, yes, you took certifications. We needed it. And I don't know how many of you are aware there's a massive change coming to the partner program. Is anybody aware of that?
I've seen some of it, but
it's no longer no silver, no gold. There's going to be I'm actually looking at it next week in detail. There's going to be an awful rush for certification as a result of it within partner land.
Right. So are you saying we could become certification professionals?
We need to collect. People are going to need more certifications. Microsoft are pushing it to get the higher levels, because the new way of solution specialists, you're going to need more or different certifications.
Mm-hmm. Because like there's stuff like the fast track solution architect, which I view as like that's a proper badge.
Yes.
Like if you get awarded that, you're.
Yeah.
I was going to say shit then, but I can't say shit, can I? You know your stuff.
Yeah.
And like so, some of the awards or recognition things I think are more valued than us. And I would say, like, once you pass the fundamentals, going further up the examinations or certifications carries a bit more gravitas as well. I wanted to know your best tips for dealing with open brackets, idiotic close brackets, Pearson VUE proctors.
I never have a problem.
I know Andy Bibby did recently.
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I very rarely, when I sign up for an exam, actually end up speaking to a proctor because I have a very clean desk. I take good photos, and it uses AI. Just to let you know, you take your photos of your desk, and it uses AI to let you through. You only get to see a proctor if the AI flags up some potential issue. So, Phil, I put a link in the chat for you. So, yes, some can be annoying, but there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to just agree with them and carry on.
See, I think I've not actually sat one of those exams remotely, but I think I wouldn't do it at my desk here.
No.
I would just take my laptop down to the dining room table where there's nothing except a lamp and a couple of pictures of astronauts, right? And
yeah, I had a lot of trouble before because I had a clear glass door in my office, and I have a 5-year-old. You just can't tell her not to walk by the door, right? So I had trouble before. We changed the door, so it's kind of a blurry kind of glass type of thing now. But they gave me a lot of heartache taking the test before. Show under your chair, show the ceiling, show the window, show everything. They didn't ask to show, anything underneath my hair because I have an advantage there. Both Julie and I suppose, but other than that, they have asked pretty much to show everything.
Nice. Have we got any other questions in the?
Yeah. I mean, I've had problems with an exam where I've had problems with an exam proctor where basically my exam didn't start. I said Phil had the same issue. That happens occasionally. This is basically what it does. There's only a few proctors online, and they use AI to monitor it all. There's occasionally there isn't a proctor available, but it is annoying. Yes, I've had that, Phil.
Yeah. Phil asked you to expand on the change. Presumably
I put a link in the chat. It's been announced the change in the program quite significantly is no longer being silver or gold. There are some detailed documents on what you require from the Microsoft Partner Center. So go look at them if you're in any way involved in partners and partner status.
Cool. Thanks for that.
So I know we are supposed to take the question, but I have a question for Carl. I think between all of us, he's the one working a large consulting company. Do you have folks in the team that are dedicated to just take the certs? Or is it pretty much the job of everyone within your team?
No, it's everyone in the team, but those figures that used to be the number of certs you needed, when you're an organization of 300,000 plus, it's easy. That's the differentiator. It's a very much a numbers game, really, isn't it? I don't know how many it was, but effectively, I don't worry about my gold status effectively as a partner. We're more interested in the inner circle and all the other add-ons to that. Gold partner is just taken for granted when you're at that size, I guess.
Yeah, and yes, you're not worrying about it. You're at a different level of relationship with Microsoft.
And it's a different game, really, in a different level, like you say, but it doesn't mean that anything's less important. I certainly see, like you were all saying about certs being a door opener for candidates, I always query that a candidate hasn't got up-to-date or relevant certs for the job that he's applying for or they're applying for, and it'll be the first question I ask. And a lot of the time it's money, time, all those things that
I would argue
maybe a step beyond.
I'm going to bring this up. I think it's really important. I think a cert from 2017 is worthless. Okay, anything more than 2 or 3 years old is worthless right now because everything's there's some things useful, but I've dealt with. I had a customer which I went in to help out, sort something out, and the people in there, they essentially were building in Dynamics 365 like they built in CRM 2011, and it was a disaster. And it's because although they had some certs there, they're not kept themselves up to date. They've not been interested in all the changes. And that's what I actually see the advantage now of the certs, where we've actually got an annual renewal process. You have to renew, and it's going to the renewals test you on all the new things. So it makes sure you keep you up to date, because we're in this fast-paced, constant change.
And I do like those renewals because A, they're free, and B, they don't take as long. But they have, some of the renewals have knocked me back, going, well, okay, I knew it back 2 years ago, but I don't know some of that stuff any longer. And like you say, introduce something new. So
I'll be honest, I failed the sales renewal.
No, I failed the sales one several times because it was concentrating on the AI, the
Sales
customer insights,
the insights,
sales insights, sorry, which I just didn't know. And
nobody does, because nobody's doing it.
Yeah,
and I had to go and I basically had to review that material and make sure I got it right and got through. But yeah, it is only what you see, year long, isn't it? So
Julian, back to your comment there on the old ones, I think the only relevant one, in my opinion, is one that used to be called Extending Dynamics CRM 2011.
Yeah, that was good.
To me, by far, that was a really good test. It was highly technical. I haven't seen anything close to it. I mean, I'm behind on my certs, but in my studies, even for what is it, PL 600.
Yeah, 400. Yeah, they're not the same depth. I thought, I'm with you. The old Extending was my favorite course to teach. It was my favorite exam. It really did test your knowledge as a developer and your capabilities.
What would you say are the most? I'm going to come back and ask you what you think are the most valuable certifications. But before we do that, let's answer Mallory's question, where he says, Julian, doing PL 600, will you get a full overview of the solution architect role? Which is
the course or the exam? Okay, the course. The course is not aimed at the exam. First off,
okay.
The course is about changing your mindset from being a doer as a functional consultant or developer into being an architect. The whole purpose of the course is to get you from doing into thinking. It's actually, I did the beta teacher this course. I helped develop it. There was a lot of MVPs, put a lot of effort into that, building it. And it's about, a lot of the exercise is about just changing your thinking. So, because as a solution architect, you have to think about different things, different ways of doing it, the best ways. Whereas a functional consultant, you're given a task and you do it. You build this app, you do that. And you often not think about the bigger picture. So it's about taking that step back. The exam is quite difficult because, again, it's how do I test those skills? Because solution architect is, well, there isn't a right answer. And best practice this month isn't going to be the same as best practice next month. So
or it might be situational also, like what you decide is probably situational.
So a lot of the exam questions go into some of the things they can test. So to answer the question, it doesn't teach you how to design. We touch on design and some architectural stuff, but the purpose of the course is to get you to change your perception and change how you think and work.
Very cool.
Which is why I don't. People ask me, can I do a study group on it? I won't, because it'll take too long. It's all about, and it works really well if you get a load of people in the room. You do group exercises, you present back to each other, you critique each other. It's a really good course if you get the right people on. And you can't come to the solution architect unless you've been I say you need 3 to 4 years minimum experience in the Power Platform. You need to be a senior functional consultant or a junior architect before you should go on the course, because you won't understand what's being talked about. You won't get it.
Joe Griffin's done a lot of great work on that, on the softer side of that course.
Yeah, it is. There's a load of soft stuff, but it's a mixture of really soft stuff and then really technical deep dive stuff. But it doesn't go as far as the fast track architect. I think I'd love to be able to go on the fast track architect, but I don't work for a big partner, because from what I understand, that's much more technical side of it. And I'd be really interested. Yeah, and no, you're right, Victor. Yeah, it depends is the answer. Always is.
It's always the answer. It's the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Forget 42. The answer is it depends.
Yeah. And to answer the question, yes, you can either go to solution architect, either from be a developer or from the functional consultant. You both are valid. But if you're a developer, you sometimes have to leave some of your development skills behind. It's a lot about the softer skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So which of the certifications do you think hold more weight? The ones that you think are more credible? That's
Here it
probably the wrong
comes.
way to ask the question, isn't it?
Here it comes. It depends.
It depends.
No, I think I've got some views on this. I think the PL200 is much more than the PL100. I mean, all the fundamentals are beginners. They get your foot in the door and get you started. But the PL200, the Dynamics Dynamics Field Service and Dynamics Marketing, I think both very good certifications.
Okay. Yeah, marketing, I'd say, is a good one, isn't it? I think also for marketing, though, to be good at it, you need to have a marketing background.
Yeah,
I think
it is very much a functional person. There's no, because marketing you don't really configure or customize, you just use, but you have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah,
and it's
and
a
what
good
you're
course
trying
and a
to
good
achieve.
exam.
Yeah. Cool. Victor?
I've seen, I mean, I said it depends in the beginning because it really depends on the kind of professional that is taking. PL 100, I hear from makers that was good. The thing is, again, back to concept, depending on how Microsoft selects the questions, if they leave out portals as an example, then it could be good for whomever just does Canvas and model-driven app. But yeah, I guess a lot of it has to do with Microsoft, again, branding and trying to promote their own products. But yeah, if I'm speaking with a maker that is starting, I'd say, of course, fundamentals to make sure that you want to continue down the path, and then PL 100 for makers.
Cool. What are your thoughts on external or in-person training? As in, do you think it's better if companies do their own training in-house, or do you think it's better if they get someone external in to do it?
Oh, right. I'll let you answer that.
Go for it, Julian.
I think there's a difference between, teaching internally from your own staff, bringing somebody external, and also going and taking an external course where you're away from the office. They're actually different things. And then, Victor, let you answer, I'll come back. I'll answer some questions.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those lines. I think, I mean, if the company is serious about getting people certified and they have a short time frame, hire somebody who can come to the business and just train a bunch of people all at once. If there are highly technical individuals that are already certified, I would strongly encourage the lunch and learn approach, because that builds a lot of community around in collaboration for the employees. It kind of builds that trust with the resources, and that would be a suggestion. Of course, I mean, back in the day when we had a lot of in-person events, I'd say if the company doesn't have much time and there are community events in the area talking about certifications or just going through programs, or I think Julian does a number of those sessions where he talks about a particular search and then he goes through the steps to get there. I'd say take those too, because I love the one-day events that you get overwhelmed with knowledge because you feel like, man, I thought I knew something and I don't know anything. And then you go back home with your notes and you start to explore, right? So I think those community events they play a good role also in professional development.
I think they're huge, actually, and I've worked in a lot of different sectors before working in the Microsoft sphere, and the amount of support and community training and knowledge sharing and stuff that goes on around Microsoft, particularly the Dynamics and Power Platform side of things, I think is phenomenal. Like, I think when we spoke before, Victor, you mentioned about people doing like Zero to Hero courses and weekly gatherings and stuff like that. I think these things are absolutely, that's where I did most of my learning. That's where I learned most of the stuff that I know, is because I was trying to manage our systems. And for a lot of people, if you don't work for a partner, if you work in a company that's using the technology, quite often you might be the only person that's working on something. And so going to these community events and being able to talk to other people that have done the stuff that you're trying to do and learning from them is massive. And then you get like Julian does study groups, loads of study groups, which I think are phenomenal, because I can't imagine that doesn't require quite a lot of work on your part. So I think the amount of community support out there for anybody wanting to study, pass an exam, or learn anything is absolutely huge.
I sometimes really despair of employers. I've worked with some people who are really technically good and they want to take exams, but they don't get any support from employers. They don't get any time off. They won't pay for the exams. And I find it very, very frustrating. What's nice about Microsoft, there are things like at Ignite, or Build's coming up in a few weeks. There will be a cloud challenge where you just have to go through some Learn modules and you'll be given a voucher for the exam. So I do those every time. Every Ignite, every Build, I do one and I get a free exam voucher or a 50% off exam voucher, depending on what they're giving. So I took an exam. So that reduces your cost. It also gives you a bit of learning and push.
You often get some online trainings that you can follow, like the very basic Power Platform and Dynamics online trainings that you can sign up for through Microsoft, and you'll get a free exam for attending those. They're normally like a day and a half or something. They're called
like Microsoft Virtual Events or Microsoft Virtual Training Days, especially around fundamentals. They do the App Maker as well.
Yes.
And you get the exam voucher.
And I forget who's the French guy that does
the Puy, I think his last name. Kim. Yeah, he's in Canada now. He moved back.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So there was something I wanted to touch on in the chat. Julian, you said that the MCT is suspended. Oh, then you said that there's some changes coming, which is awesome.
They've suspended enrolment of new MCTs as of the 1st of April. They're making some changes to the MCT program. It was only announced a week ago. Everybody's up in arms about it. We don't know what's happening. But what we do know is you're not going to be allowed just to use a reference with MCT. You'll need to have some sort of course. For instance, when I became an MCT, I spent a week down at TVP in Reading at Microsoft, where I was put through the ringer. Really was. I had to present. You had to prepare. We talked about how you train, how you handle scenarios, and then you evaluated. And not everybody passed. And I've done the same for other MCTs where we've done things. CompTIA, CT++ is acceptable. There's a list on the Learn web pages what you have to do. There's about a dozen different things. And there's also some MCTs, we do it as a community thing where we do virtual training of trainers. And that's one of the accepted things. But right now, MCT is great. I mean, it's my living to a large extent now. But it's changing. I don't deliver the, we've been talking about these courses. Most of the training I do isn't the standard Microsoft courses. I'm doing RPA in a day on Friday. I've been doing some Azure fundamentals for sales, for key account managers. What is the cloud? I'll do some stuff like that. I'm doing I've got my own little lots of one-day courses on, which is I've done on Dynamics 365 Sales Professional. Which I love Sales Pro. It's great. It's a great solution for SMB, but people don't know how to sell it. And I'm aiming at the Microsoft 365 specialists who've got lots of customers who are unable to, where can I get more money out of my customers? Well, they can do Dynamics simply. And I go through those sort of things. There's lots more to do.
Yeah, it's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say, it's funny you said that, Julian. I got a call on my way to the airport yesterday from somebody who wants to record a tailor-made Dynamics 365 CE / their own solution that's built on top of Power Platform. They want to record that for their own customers. So yeah, there is quite a bit of that.
There's loads. I would say more than 50% of what I do isn't standard courses. It's
very cool. Phil had a question. What do you think is the best way to study for an exam? I've seen people study for an exam for 3 months, yet others cram in a few. I would say probably the answer to that is it depends on the exam, probably.
But typically, my advice is to set a target 2 to 3 months ahead, book the exam, and do half an hour a day.
Okay.
For me, that's the best way. The other approach I take, and this is controversial, I just go take the exam. Because A, I might pass, and B, if I don't pass, I know what I don't know, and I can focus my revision.
Yeah.
And it's controversial, but I'm quite comfortable doing that because I've taken lots of exams, and I've passed one. I passed the Cosmos DB developer. It's a great exam. I squeaked through on that with hardly any prep, and I took that approach. I thought, I pass it. I was really surprised I did.
That's where those free vouchers come in handy.
Yeah, it is. It didn't cost me anything, but I was willing to pay for it for the second time if I failed.
Yeah, right. But like, it's a really good learning curve, right? Because well, I don't have to worry about cramming on that stuff because I know enough about that, but I just focus on these things, and so maybe you could do it in a few days, right?
And a lot of it comes down, people over prepare. They really do. They spend too much. They often go down the wrong things because they don't know what the exam's about. You sort of get a feel for it after a while, but different. It's interesting. I take some Azure exams. Somebody else said the Azure 204. That's actually a pretty tough exam. But the Azure exams are quite different from the Power Platform and Dynamics exams in terms of how they're structured and the sort of things they ask and the way they ask.
So what I've done is I have two friends. They're very close to me. We used to work together in the past. Now we all have followed our own path. But what we do is we pick a series of exams, and then we say, okay, whomever is the last taking those exams will buy everybody else lunch, right? Yeah. And I have one friend who has done, I think, PL 400, two of them actually, 900, 400, and I just have done 900, I think. Yeah, so I am on the hook for that one. So if they do 600 first, then I owe them lunch. So and it's
and
not
me, you owe me lunch as well. Even I just interjected myself into that.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, say that again.
I've just interjected myself into that for no reason. You can owe me lunch as well, I think.
There you go. Yeah, I'll maybe we could do it with this room. Maybe Julian is excluded from this game.
I've got it anyway.
Yeah. Julian 80 badges.
I'm waiting. There's a new exam coming out. Anybody know? There's a PL 500, which is a Power Automate Developer certification. It's coming out next. It's coming out in beta next week, and it's really about Power Automate Desktop. But it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be the hardest exam we'll have.
I was going to say, whomever has the most or has the least, buy us all lunch during the Scottish Summit.
Yeah.
I think that'll be Alison. Then you better get your checkbook out, love.
Yeah. That's definitely going to be me.
I'm way behind.
And I think I think both of you have mentioned it though, the idea of a community, and I think that lunch and learn, or even just your friends and being competitive, I think that's the best way that I've found that a group of people going for a common goal and trying to understand and feeding off each other. And it's the same with any sort of learning environment or work environment. You sort of have different views and different aspects and different experiences, and it just builds up your understanding if you're talking to each other about it, and you're forcing each other to talk about it by being in the same room at the same time.
Yeah, I see a lot of people on the social media and I think are looking for study partners, or on Facebook, but there doesn't seem to be a way of putting people together. I think it'd be quite nice if there was, because studying together does really help.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
like a speed dating, isn't it? Certs.
Or like recruitment.
Yeah. But it is matching people up. Yeah.
It is matching people up, yeah. On that bombshell, any closing comments before we round off? Anything that we didn't talk about that you would have liked to have talked about?
I would like to say something. I mean, I see the material that Julian puts out and the study groups. You were easily looking at, maybe I'm not going to make the proper monetary translation, but in Canadian money, I think between 10 to 15,000 investment to get a person with this caliber to teach you stuff a lot of times free of charge, right? And I do community events. I do these online events as well. And one of the things that's really hard on us, or personally for me, is when you put out good content and a few people show up because they know it's recorded, they can see at their own time. And I want to be cognizant of people's schedules and all that. But one thing that would really help is for folks to join us live. You know, it boosts our moral a little more. It helps in the exchange of information. At least for me, that is an area that I would love to see folks more engaged. So we can continue to do this.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. It really annoys me when you do something. The first question you get is it recorded? Because you know what they're going to mean. They know it's recorded, they're going to switch off, and they don't get the engagement. And for me, it's about getting. The reason I do it is to learn from other people and get other people's views and find out what people don't know. Which is why I do my study group. It's a private thing inside my own team's tenant. So the recordings are done, but only to people who have joined. And I've got this rule: if you don't turn up for 3 sessions, consecutive sessions, you get kicked out.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just filled that form in, so I'm hoping to get in and not get kicked out. But yeah, but that's an ideal situation. You set the ground rules, and I think that's probably what it is. It's setting the ground rules and sticking to them and not taking any exceptions, really.
And the other thing I want to point out is sometimes we all think, oh, training, I need expert level training. It's not my experience. Most of the demand for training and learning is for beginners. Like usually, it's where do I start? How do I get going? Which is why the fundamentals are so popular. But as I was saying, they're not necessarily pitched at the right level. There's a gap between how do I get started, which is things like the Power Platform School is really great, and other community events is how you get going. So sometimes I say, don't go for certification straight away. You need to be on ramp a little bit, then go do the cert. The cert, so fundamentals isn't to learn how to do something. It's marketing from Microsoft.
Yeah. I was going to say, and Phil put it in the chat as well, and I was thinking, why do you record the sessions? Why don't you just not record them and then people have to show up?
To get so many complaints. No, when we do my groups, I get people from all over the world. So I get people from Australia and America. And so what I do is one's at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, one's at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. So you should be able to catch one of those a week. And because we're in a worldwide world, so yeah, I allow people to record, but I want people to show up. And if they don't, I'll kick them out because it's just, contribute. And I want to get people's feedback.
I think, it's just, for me, it's a basic level of manners. If somebody's providing you a study group that's for your benefit, then you should show up. But I do also agree, setting the ground rules, setting the expectation at the start and saying, this is how it goes down. If you're not in for that, then don't join. But
I'm also producing some YouTube content, which I'll be putting on for free, but that's not learning. That's just me talking about certain things. That's different. That's about me building my brand.
Yeah, which is fair enough. But I think to learn for certifications and stuff, it needs to be a bit of an iterative process, right? Like you say, you need to have that to and fro, the exchange of ideas and stuff like that, or the conversation around it. So that brings us nicely round to the hour of 8. And all that remains is for me to say thank you so much.
It's been fun.
To both Julian and Victor for joining us. And if you would like to send them wonderful presents and money, you can contact them on those various links and ask for their PayPal details or their GoFundMe or indeed their home address, which I'm sure they'll be delighted to share with you. And thank you so much, Victor, for joining us from God knows where in northern Mexico, and whatever time it is. It's probably early morning, is it, or middle of the morning now, I guess, is it?
Yeah, it's 1 p.m. I am in a city called Chihuahua. I told my girls that's where the dogs come from, but I haven't seen any Chihuahuas here yet.
So that is where the dogs come
I'm going to have to say goodbye. I've got to drop because I've got another call with Microsoft.
Thanks, Julian.
Thank you so much, Julian.
Bye-bye.
Lovely to see you.
Thanks for listening to another great hour. Join us next month for more banter and discussion. Let us know your thoughts on Twitter or LinkedIn and subscribe in your usual place.